Welcome to the Pop Culture Lab, where we break down your favorite movies and TV shows. This week, we're talking about the best things we watched in 2023. Connor, let's get in the lab. Drinking a brewski, back in the lab.
We are, sir. I love this topic. I love what we're excited about. Retrospective. Let's look back at the year.
Except that I had to put you in an arm bar to get you to narrow it down to your top 5.
I know, dude. Come on. This is my faux podcast excitement, all right? This is my podcast voice. I was weeping 10 seconds ago.
Exactly, yeah.
I have to kill my darlings. You don't understand.
Somebody has to force you to contain your... otherwise, you would go on for... We'd be here all night.
You're saying that like last episode, I ended up talking about all the things you asked me not to talk about, which...
You
would
never do.
Didn't happen.
Which you would never do.
No, that didn't just happen 10 seconds ago.
Sar wishes we would so that we could give him a 5-hour podcast.
I know. True. I mean, you know, I'm trying to appease the masses, our audience here,
the listeners.
On the other side, we do have Clayton though. So
yeah. Who he already fast forwarded like 3 times.
That's true. Yeah. Listener or hater, I don't know. Fine line there, Clay dog. All right.
It's good to be back though.
It is.
Yep.
It is. I have had just a heck of a week. I'm pooped, to be honest with you, but I'm here. I'm excited. Talk about some movies, drink some brews. Not just movies, spoiler alert, but
TV shows. It's
the
best things we watched.
Yeah, best media we've consumed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Maybe you read a book. Who knows?
Maybe.
Likely not. But
what kind of a podcast do you think this is anyway?
Well, not a boring one.
Yeah.
I'll tell you. No books.
Yeah, but here we are. Ready to go. It's the holiday season. Want to send our listeners off with something to think about as they maybe have a little bit of extra time to sit back and catch up on something that came out this year.
Definitely. Now's the time. And, you know, kind of along those lines-ish, we haven't seen everything, admittedly. There may be some glaring, gaping holes
omissions
in some of this. Yeah. No Oppenheimers to be found, unfortunately. No,
didn't make
Killers of the Flower
one.
Moon.
No.
Sorry, we just haven't seen these things. So getting that out of the way early, they probably deserve a spot on these lists, but haven't seen them. So
sure,
they're very long and it's intimidating.
I don't know if this is a better take for the end of the podcast, but I'll just lob it out there. Hasn't been a great year for movies. It hasn't seemed that way anyway.
Yeah, and, well, not to use those past 2 movies as examples. I think those were probably excellent movies,
sure.
Particularly
I just
Oppenheimer.
meant across the board.
Yeah.
I mean, we know we had the longest strike from the writers since, when was it? Like the 80s or something?
Yeah.
So that put a big dent in the calendar year. Certainly still feeling some after effects of the pandemic. It's just not been a great year, I don't think.
No, poor box office across the board.
Terrible box office numbers.
I would wonder overall, as a year, how it just compares even to an average year. I mean, I think if you look at what studios would consider tent poles, there's no way that those are doing the same numbers. I mean, that is clearly a box office issue right now. That should be.
There have been a few big smash hits. I mean, Barbie's certainly one of them. Avatar 2.
And Oppenheimer.
Avatar 2 made a buttload of money.
Yeah. There's been a few. But it seems to me also, too, that a number of other movies that have made money this year were more sleeper hits. Across the Spider-Verse made a boatload.
Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah.
But this new Hunger Games movie, for example, is still number 2 or 3 at the box office, I think, right now. It's not right in front of me, but last I was listening to a podcast about it, I think that's where it's at. It's making money. It was released several weeks ago.
Yeah.
So it's still making money, which is pretty impressive. Actually, Wonka is the highest grosser at the current moment.
I mean, not a lot of competition. There's what Boy and the Heron is out right now.
Boy and the Heron was number 3. So I think it's Wonka, Hunger Games, Boy and the Heron, which is crazy. It is kind of shocking that Hunger Games would continue to eclipse even Boy and the Heron, honestly, because that has a pretty wide audience too.
I guess it's animated, right?
Yeah, but it's
Miyazaki, but animated films don't tend to do as well as live action, just across the board.
Well, but speaking of Across the Spider-Verse was a hugely high-grossing animated movie this year, and I think even Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles wasn't it was not a flop.
Yeah. I just think expectations have come down significantly after the pandemic. Other than your odd giant hit like Barbie or Avatar, you just can't rely on people to come out anymore.
Just so you know, Oppenheimer made like $900 million, basically made almost $1 billion. So you keep neglecting it from your little short list of highest grossing movies. But
no, I think that's fine. I mean, it's just it used to be that you could count on some of these big movies that they invested a lot of money into, and now, I mean, it feels like if you were to tell the story of 2023 in movies, it's of box office bombs more so than box office hits.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I know. Crazy. But yeah, like
nothing
you said,
against Oppenheimer and specifically, just
no, but it's a story like you said of the pandemic and many factors, some of which we probably don't even fully understand yet.
Nope.
Alrighty. Well,
before we go into this though, what have you been watching?
Oh, wow, my God. More stuff to think about.
Yeah. Get to sneak in an extra one here.
I'm not sure I've...
I can get it started.
You know what?
I have something in mind. Oh.
No, please. Go ahead.
I have been watching with my girlfriend Love Island. I am...
Okay.
Yeah, I think at one point... a couple months ago, we talked a little bit about reality TV shows because you had been watching some. I think Love is Blind is what we talked about.
That's right.
Yeah. So this is not my wheelhouse whatsoever, but my girlfriend's been recovering.
Sounds familiar.
A bit. So we've been watching some reality TV, and so I got exposed to Love Island Australia. The new season, and I'm doing this for the benefit of our listeners, of course, who are tracking each of these seasons, and the new spin-off, which is Love Island Games.
There's all is fair in love and games.
Yeah. Yes. This turns out not fair at all. That is really fun, I will say. This is a whole world that I am
what
woefully...
are the games? Okay, I'm curious about that.
So I'm still trying to figure out like what even the show is about. But the games bring winners or just really hot people from the cast of like the American version and the British version and the Australian version. They bring them all together and they compete / again, like
so it's all the games.
Yeah, but I don't really understand what they're trying to win or accomplish. Are they? I still can't tell if they're trying to find love or they're trying to make money or
they're just the hottest people.
Yeah, they're just hot people on a TV show together.
That's not enough for you.
Around. No, it's fine. It's enough to be entertained. That is for sure. So it's been fun. It's you have to just turn off that part of your brain that thinks.
That you mean like the whole brain?
That part, yeah, all of it. But with that said, it is entertaining. It is entertaining to a degree.
Yeah.
It's so contrived. I mean, anytime things are going well for a couple, the producers of the show will throw in just like something to just mess things up. And it's so obvious that that's what they're doing, but it keeps it fresh and interesting, I guess. They're the people that you love to root against. They're the people that you love to root for. In some ways, it kind of reminds me of professional wrestling in that way, how it's very scripted. Like they're the people that the baby faces and the heels, right? Is I think what they call them in wrestling.
Right.
And so there's some of that too. Yeah. I'm enjoying it well enough.
It almost feels like there's a bit of like a reality TV essence like right now, particularly in terms of the romantic stuff like that. It's everywhere, and I don't want to dare say that it's high quality because I can't bring myself to, but it's attracting a wide audience, a lot of this content right now, and for whatever reason, it's connecting with people. And these producers, like you said, I mean, they're kind of at the top of their game right now, and these shows are like the TikTok of TV shows. I don't know. They're just crack to people.
Yes, and they're really cheap to produce.
Yeah,
I mean, I was at holiday party season, so I was at my office holiday party yesterday, and my coworkers, men and women, they spent 15 minutes talking about all these reality TV shows they've been watching, very much like Love Island, and half of them are hosted by Nick Lachey. And it's hilarious.
Yeah, have you heard of The Ultimatum?
Yeah, that was one of the ones they were talking about.
Yeah, because that's what my wife is watching now. And I have to say, I was like, well, of course, this looks stupid. But then she was like, well, it's the same people as
Love is Blind.
Love is Blind. It's Nick Lachey. And I was like, well, they do know what they're doing.
It's a well-oiled machine.
Can't be half bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Like, they literally have it down to a science. Like, they just are like... I don't always really even like fundamentally or morally agree with reality TV in a certain sense, but hey, they're killing it. What can I say?
It's hard to argue with success.
It's hard to argue with tons and tons of money.
Yeah,
but good for them.
For sure.
He went from being Jessica Simpson's husband in my eyes to.
He's managed to make a career out of that, which is great.
He has, yeah. That's true.
But I just before we move off of this, I have been enjoying just the cultural, the culture shock of bringing together these Australian hot people and British hot people and American hot people, and just the differences in the game, like the games that they're playing are so interesting, and what like a hot person acts like in these different cultures is very different, and so that's fun to see that all come together.
Any favorites? Who are the...
I mean, for sure, I will say that the Americans are the hottest, but have the least game. Like they're
Interesting.
The banter is so much better with the Brits and the Aussies, which you would expect.
I would assume the Aussies come down in the middle as far as hotness to that ratio.
Yeah.
Hotness to charm.
No, actually.
Really?
Well, yeah. I think
Aussies
that's true.
are hot.
They're a lot hotter than the Brits, for sure.
Yeah, that's where I'm alluding to.
It's true.
I mean, come on. Sorry, but...
Yeah. But that has been fun to watch play out.
That's crazy. Nice.
What have you been watching?
Well, I think the question stumped me so much because in reality, I have not been watching, but I've been playing.
Ooh.
Which is unfortunate because I guess it's also on my upcoming list, but maybe I'll give it a late swap or something. Last minute. I have been playing Red Dead Redemption 2. For those who don't know, for those who don't play, it is a 2018 game developed by Rockstar. I'm very late to the party.
Just like 5 years.
That's a bit. The gaming community really loved this game. You can play it on console, PC, what have you. I'm playing it on an old Xbox One. Could probably have a better graphics card, but it's an older game too, so it's probably running pretty smoothly on this platform. Anywho, it's fantastic. I don't play a ton of video games. We've discussed this. You play more than I do, but and I recently played Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, which I've talked about on this podcast, and I may draw some comparisons between the two games. But this game has been great. I think my brother recommended it to me first. Then you came in and you have stated that it's your favorite game ever.
It may be, yeah.
Maybe. So that's a huge statement. I mean, when you said that, I was blown away. I think I was already playing it by that point. But yeah, yeah, so my brother Tyler recommended it. He definitely plays more games than I do. Elden Ring, lots of stuff that I haven't explored. But it is, as you stated, also like one of the most cinematic games you can play.
Yeah.
The gameplay it's just kind of open world, and you're in the Wild West, and it takes so many of the things that work so well about other Rockstar games, Grand Theft Auto, many of the successful Rockstar games are sort of based around, debauchery, just like being a bad guy. But this game takes that to a whole other level. You, at every opportunity, get to be a bad guy. Most interactions that you have, you're presented with, should I loot this or rob this person? Should I greet them, or should I antagonize them? Those are the three options. So two of those are pretty negative.
Yeah.
The only one is kind of like neutral to good. And in Grand Theft Auto, you're obviously, doing all sorts of things. You're a criminal, stealing cars, obviously, at the very least, killing people, doing all sorts of stuff. And Grand Theft Auto is known for just being a game where people run around, myself included, just run around killing people, just willy-nilly.
Sure.
Sorry, listeners, I know that sounds like insane, like I'm a psycho. I don't know. It's just this silly game, and it's just like been done since Grand Theft Auto Vice City. So this game, Red Dead Redemption 2, takes I've never played Red Dead Redemption 1, to be fair, but it takes so many things that worked about Rockstar games for me, all that violent stuff, but then adds this morality aspect where you actually have an honor measure that goes up and down based on your actions, which makes you really think about everything that you do. There's so many amazing things like hunting in the world, meeting different people, having random interactions, exploring the world. It's visually beautiful. Zelda is really, really beautiful, but it's very fantastical. This feels like they replicated Planet Earth in an incredible way. There's a really boring kind of opening intro tutorial part where you're in the mountains, but it's stunningly gorgeous.
Yeah.
Like, you can't argue that. So we'll talk about it more. I know you have thoughts too, but like I said, the morality piece we talked about recently, how what happened is actually I started playing the game, got to a certain point, had to restart and update my machine, lost all my progress, started over, and I'd already played the game through for a bit, and I was kind of impatient with it, so I was taking a lot of those negative actions. I was just kind of I was like, what happens if I'm just a jerk in this game and act like an asshole? And I started kind of just feeling bad about it. Like, you just do things to kind of people who don't deserve it, and you end up just kind of feeling crappy about it. And then when I told you that, you said, oh, well, actually, not only do you feel bad about it, but the character feels bad about it. And there's opportunities where this character actually expresses and reacts to the things that he's done, which is just, I find, really interesting and taps into something like about human beings in a way that many, many games don't. It just it's gotten me even thinking about my own actions in the world. It's quite fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, I want to talk about two things you mentioned in there, and I think they're related. The level of immersion in this game is so, I think, contrasting it with Grand Theft Auto is perfect because it was made by the same game developers, right? But what you do in Grand Theft Auto matters not at all. And it's so easy to separate yourself from the actions that you're doing as your character in Grand Theft Auto. Like,
right.
It's almost the violence is the point.
It's just a bunch of NPCs that are lifeless, Right. It's like, yeah.
It's like, it's funny, like it's immersive in a way, like it recreates some elements of life, but
it's fantastical in the sense that your actions have no consequences.
Right. Whereas Red Dead Redemption, I think, takes its title very literally. It is about the redemption of one character.
Right.
Arthur Morgan, who's the main character of of the game, and that ties with the second thing I wanted to talk about, which is the cinematic quality, and that has to do with the beautiful world that you're in, that you were talking about, just like the graphics, even 5 years later. And 5 years may not sound like a lot, but when you're talking about game development, that does matter a lot. I mean, the technology advances really, really quickly, and so the fact that even 5 years later, it still looks beautiful, I think helps bring you into the world and make you feel like it is really lived in. There is an unreal amount of detail in this game. And
unbelievable.
Every character that you interact with has like a background and a story and a life, and you can catch glimpses of it if you're paying attention, or even if you're not. There's stuff going on in the world no matter what. And whereas Grand Theft Auto, it feels like you could drop in and out, and like it only exists to kind of serve your needs as the player. Red Dead Redemption, it feels like you go in and you think you're going to do one thing, and then you get distracted hunting or wandering around or helping somebody in a town, and hours later you realize like you did none of the things that you were intending to do, just because you were living in this world.
Right. It's very clear in the game what missions you're supposed to be going on and taking, and I find myself constantly procrastinating or forgetting about those because I'm doing exactly that, exploring the world, hunting, finding different ways to sell the pelts that I have, and just
talking to the people at camp, just like seeing what happens.
Yeah.
They'll like start singing randomly. It'll feel very lived in, like they're real people.
Yeah, totally. And two of the conversations I've had at camp revolve around that very morality question. I keep talking to they're always women, and they just say, hey, you want to talk? And if you accept, he kind of unloads about his guilt. Yeah. And it's just like, but both times he like goes to guilt. And so it's like, oh fuck, I want to help this guy out.
It's like, about his redemption. Yeah.
Yeah. I realized that a couple weeks ago. I was like, okay, I see that redemption is the key word here.
Yeah.
Incredible. If it was a movie, it'd be 98% on Rotten Tomatoes. I mean, it'd be an incredible Western. And it's so special that it is a game because a movie couldn't be this. Mm-hmm. A movie couldn't be this. A movie is not this. It can't be this.
Because of the interactivity, because of the length. I mean, you have spent how many hours, compared to watching a movie in this game. And I have been very clear with you to like not spoil yourself, because you're midway through the game right now, but it's a really, really compelling story. And I'm really excited to hear what you think once you get to the end of it. Totally.
Well, I mean, and what I'm saying too is it's like crawling into a movie, to go back to your cinematic point. And it's like, it's imagine if you could go into a movie and spend more time there than the 90 minutes or 120 minutes that you would normally spend there. You actually get to spend potentially an infinite amount of time in that world. And it feels like that, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Very good.
Glad you're getting around to it, man.
One of the best recommendations I've had ever, probably.
Good.
Really good. I love it. Yeah.
All right, well then let us get into the best things that we consumed in 2023.
That's right.
Since you have had such a difficult time narrowing down, you want to get us started?
Oh gosh, sure. And I even took one of my picks away now, just on my intro. So sure. What have I got? This is gonna be in no particular order. Where to start? I'll start with something a little different, and probably the most recent on this list, with one exception. They cloned Tyrone. Maybe you haven't heard of this movie. Maybe you have. Netflix is very hit or miss with regards to content. But this was an awesome movie. It was like, there was a little bit of Get Out. There was a little bit of Cabin in the Woods. it was a blaxploitation thing, like modern day, and not too heavy on that. Like, like Black Dynamite is a hilarious Michael Jai White. Am I saying that right? Yeah. Michael Jai White movie, and that's like a blaxploitation comedy, like it's making fun of that, and so they're not leaning into it so hard that it's like a comedy or a spoof, but it is such an interesting movie. And you know what, maybe I have notes. I guess I don't. Yeah, it's been a minute. Like, I'm stoned.
I'm so glad I narrowed it down to 5.
Well, no, I should have written down my thoughts about this one. So it's basically like this main character. So it's funny because it's I don't know. It does it leans into these stereotypes, or it kind of spins on these stereotypes in an incredible way. It's got Jamie Foxx. It's got the guy who is in Star Wars. What's his name? Fuck.
No,
It's not off to a good start, is it?
John Boyega.
John Boyega.
Hey.
Exactly. So my Jamie Foxx, John Boyega. Oh yeah, and the woman who plays Monica Rambeau,
Oh, right.
Teyonah Parris.
Mm-hmm.
So she is amazing in this, by the way. So it's a pimp played by Jamie Foxx, a drug dealer played by John Boyega, and a hooker played by Teyonah Parris. And basically, like the movie starts off, and then John Boyega has to go visit Jamie Foxx, and like right after he leaves, because of some shit earlier, like an argument and some shit with this other guy, John Boyega like hit this guy with his car because the guy did some shit and like broke the guy's leg. But that guy talked to like another dude, a super scary guy, and they went and shot up John Boyega like in his car. And so right after he left Jamie Foxx's, he gets like shot up, and then he like wakes up basically and goes and kind of like relives the same day. But it's not what you think. It's not like a time loop thing. Jamie Foxx is like, what the fuck? Like, I saw you just get shot up like outside of my house. Like, what is going on? And you realize that like he's actually been replaced, like literally, like there's a clone basically of him. And you know, to say any more in some ways would start to give away the rest of this movie.
Sure.
But it is fascinating and so funny and so smartly done. Like, you know, I think it achieves so much of what Get Out is going for and accomplishes.
The suspense and shit, yeah.
Yeah, and the commentary.
Yeah.
The, like, utilizing commentary through this kind of, like, mystery, you know, like, uncovering a mystery that comments on society, and, you know, it's really, really great. I think in some ways, like what I always say about Get Out and Us, especially those two movies, is that like I usually have more fun watching Us in a way. Like Get Out is actually really fun in its own right, but it's like kind of crazy, you know. It's like it's really an intense experience that like I think, yeah, like it really hits you hard like the first couple times you see it.
Yeah.
Us, I find in some ways to be more like rewatchable. But this movie kind of combined those in a way. I just feel like it was so fun and smart, and also just had like all this deeper meaning and commentary and subtle. I mean, if you're not paying attention, you can miss some of it. But and fantastic performances across the board. Like, to be totally honest, Teyonah Parris, like because of the Marvels and WandaVision, like I thought she was solid. I thought she was fine. but she's
knocked
exceptional
your socks off,
in this.
yeah.
So she's great.
Yeah.
She adds so much to this character, and she's completely different
Yeah.
than she is as Monica Rambeau. Like, she starts talking, and you're like, oh my god, like, whoa, that's not the same at all.
That's a good recommendation. man.
Strong
You said
recommendation.
Netflix?
There. Yeah, it's on Netflix.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you have Netflix, you can watch it. It's
I'm intrigued. I'm going to check that one out.
it's really cool. It's really cool. So yeah.
Well, I'll jump in here. I again, no particular order, but I'm going to throw out Palm Springs,
Nice.
the Andy Samberg feature. This was a blast. I love the timey-wimey stuff. We got Groundhog's Day shout-outs. You know, it's so much fun. It takes place in the desert in like Arizona at a wedding. And Andy Samberg has, you quickly find out that he is a guest at this wedding, and he has been reliving the same wedding day over and over and over and over and over again. And it is just so much fun. It subverts, but certainly kind of goes with that concept. I would say it's one of a handful of movies, and I would say that 2023 we've seen a lot of instances of that concept being deployed.
Particularly time stuff, but that movie in particular, I think, yeah, like to your point, it's very Groundhog's Day. It's the repeating, like Russian Doll, even.
Yeah. Yep.
It's a repeating the same day over and over again. And I haven't seen Russian Doll, but that one really just like it takes that concept, I think, further and more intelligently than I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, it does, and it never loses track of just being a fun time as well.
And having heart.
And having some, absolutely that too. I think J.K. Simmons makes a really memorable cameo in this movie.
Totally.
Just enough, like no more than you need, but it's just perfect when he shows up.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
It's a super fun movie. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it.
It will put a smile on your face.
It really will.
I mean,
It was the best like $5 I spent on a rental this year, probably.
Absolutely. Yeah. Genuine chemistry between the leads.
Yep.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's a romantic comedy. I'd put it in that category.
For sure, it's a
But
rom-com.
it's a like nearly flawless one. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest. Like, what would you rate that movie?
Probably like an 8.
What?
Like an 8.
I thought you were going to say like 9.5. For what it is, that's
I'd-
a solid 9.
Like an 8.5, maybe.
oh, I give it even more. I think that's like,
It's a very, very good movie.
yeah, I would put it in like top rom-coms of the last 10 years in some ways.
See it, and decide for yourself. There's no way I would not recommend this movie to anybody. In fact, I did recommend it to a former coworker of mine who does not watch a lot of movies, and this was one of the ones that they actually took my recommendation and they texted me. They said they loved it.
Yeah.
So
there you go.
take that for what you will.
Don't listen to the assholes who watch a ton of movies.
What are the people who don't watch anything? And then they're like, wow, that was great.
Yeah, means a lot more. All right, well,
Your turn.
that was a more concise answer. Theater Camp.
Oh,
I decided to put that on the list
okay.
because I didn't know it was kind of mockumentary style going in. I knew it was a comedy. I knew it was about theater camp. I mean, a bunch of dorky theater kids running around at camp, you know. I just envisioned it. I was a theater kid.
Sure.
I mean, it's like it captures that so well. Like, it is so funny. But it is also this mockumentary style thing that I wasn't expecting. Like, they really kind of hit the Christopher Guest nerve in a way that almost nobody else but Christopher Guest can. So that was really cool. And on top of it, it ended up being a genuinely good story and movie. Like, in much in the way that, like, I guess Best in Show is, but I would maybe say like A Mighty Wind. Like, where A Mighty Wind is cuter. It's not as funny. Like, A Best in Show and Spinal Tap, I'm sure, are funnier. But A Mighty Wind, it has some heart. It has some soul.
Right. It has an arc.
Yes, and this movie managed to balance all of those things. Like, and I really didn't see the arc part coming. Like, I thought it was going to be, because you take a concept like that, and I feel like a lot of times the most filmmakers can deliver on is, well, we have this concept. It's going to be like a mockumentary style about theater camp, and it really just ends up being like a prolonged Office episode with a bunch of theater eccentric types. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was that plus genuine character arcs and like a satisfying story, and a story that made you actually surprisingly feel something. And so hats off to that movie. It was one of the better comedies that I've seen this year, I would say, easily.
I did not see that one coming. I did not think that was going to make your list.
Yeah. I think particularly for the Christopher Guest style comedy, it earned a lot of points. I was laughing out loud. Again, I was feeling by the end to pull a juggling act like that off, I think takes a lot. So
for sure,
great. Kudos.
Good rec for a couple arts school kids.
Yeah, even if you hate theater kids, you'll love this movie.
Okay,
because you'll be like, it's so spot on.
Well, I'm going to throw in Station 11. I know I talked at length about that show on this podcast before. You made it through one episode before you gave up the ghost.
Well, I was probably too busy watching a movie about a ghost. To be
no
honest
doubt.
with you.
Yeah, this was the year of horror for our friend Mr. Grossnick.
Yeah, I was just consuming too much other stuff.
Well, Station 11 was fantastic. It's a post-apocalyptic TV show. There's some unnamed respiratory illness that kills like 99% of the world. And it's taking place when the epidemic first happens and then like 20 years later. And it's flipping between those times. It's really, really well acted. It has some of the most striking scenes, I think. It recalls some of movies like I Am Legend, where there's like New York City and it's just deserted, that kind of thing. Really, really well done, I thought. If you haven't had a chance to watch it, it's on, I think, HBO.
Yeah. Now Max,
excuse me. Really excellent. You got to watch it. Connor, go and finish it, please. If you got some extra time before the end of the year, give it another attempt. I wouldn't lead you astray. You finally made it to Red Dead Redemption. You got to give this one a try too.
Is the imagery of like, sort of the I Am Legend style stuff more interesting or striking than Last of Us? Because that was fairly strong.
Way more striking.
Okay.
Not only the imagery, but it's more compelling. I think...
one thing I will give you is in the first episode, they do this thing where you're looking at a shot of a street or a corner, what have you, in the city, and then they cut to it after the pandemic, where it's overgrown, like what you're saying, just desolate. That is cool and striking and meaningful. That's right. Yeah.
The cinematography is fantastic. They do a lot of really fun stuff. I think as a film major, you would appreciate those kinds of things, like just the choices in shots and editing between times when they're going back and forth between the times. They do a lot of stuff with that, and so I think you'd geek out a bit about that. Like I said, great acting. There is a kind of a parallel plot going on about this in present day. After everybody's dead, there's a Shakespeare troupe that is wandering kind of the settlements of the survivors, delivering performances, because it's not enough to just be alive. You also have to have art. Art is a representation of like, what are you alive for? Like, it can't just be to shovel food in your life and live to see the next sunrise. You also have to have something that makes it worth living. And so the show explores that over It's 10 episodes, but it feels like I just wish it could have kept going, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it was a strong first episode.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I was captivated. Again, I really just think I got distracted by other things. But, yeah, great recommendation. I mean, I should prioritize that for sure.
Yeah, bring it back.
Indeed. I hear you. I will do.
What's next on your list?
I've mentioned this before, but Evil Dead Rise. Surprise.
I think
here we go.
If I had to guess, this would be your number one. This is your most recommended piece of media from this last year.
Most recommended. I've probably ran my mouth the most about it. Yeah, maybe, at this point, I guess it's probably overhyped coming from me, but I just had so much fun. I don't know. I guess I've seen the first Evil Dead. I haven't seen Evil Dead 2, which like many people say is the best. So I maybe I'm not the best guy to ask. But I do appreciate Sam Raimi, and this obviously wasn't Sam Raimi, and I think it's a distinct step away. In fact, I still also need to see the 2013 Evil Dead Fede Alvarez remake, because that's not Sam Raimi. That's distinctly more violent and different, which I think this, from what I can understand, this kind of strikes the balance between the two. But it was absolute roller coaster of a movie. There was wicked violence. There was cool, crazy shots, great use of lighting, great makeup, great effects. There was a sequence that took place through a peephole. Like, imagine this scary deadite woman on the other side doing all this crazy shit down a hallway, but all the visibility you have is through this peephole, and so you can you get an idea of what she's doing off camera, but you don't totally see it all, which is almost more unsettling than what you do see.
Right? Yeah.
And it's
Lets
just
the imagination run wild.
It's strongly crafted, total blast, minimal, a good short runtime, tightly made, explores relationships and familial relationships and mothers and all sorts of crazy shit. I always say this, but my wife, who just hates horror movies and hates violence and hates slicing, this movie had a cheese grater to the leg, hates all that stuff, couldn't look away. It's a compelling piece of art, I tell you. It's a roller coaster. Strap in tight and just let it knock your socks off. It's an absolute front to back wild ride. And yeah, you know what more can be asked? It's great. And it was funny and crazy and a little silly and over the top. Perfect. It just balanced all those things exquisitely.
Sure. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
I think if you have the appetite for such things, I think that's a strong recommendation. I think a lot of people probably just immediately put that to the side when they heard the cheese grater to the leg. But
I know you are probably one of those people. However,
Sure.
I would say you could get some enjoyment out of it. I think PCHH does a really good job of I've heard a lot of discussion about separating kind of the different types of violence you watch in these kinds of movies. And the violence in this movie is silly and over the top enough, and the tone of the whole movie is tongue in cheek enough that I don't think it really gets to you. Bone Tomahawk, I always use this example, has a seriousness that makes the violence just really hit.
yeah.
And this is not going for that, and I think you could compartmentalize some of that disgusting violence for the sake of oh my God, this is so silly. By the end, she's covered in blood with a chainsaw.
Sure.
Come on. It's they're referencing Ash from the other movies, and it's totally over the top crazy.
Yeah.
Which almost makes it more digestible in a sense, but so I think.
Good rec. Couldn't have gotten out of here without that one on here.
No, that's true.
Well, I am going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves.
So good.
This was so much fun.
Yeah,
this is
talk about
probably
fun.
the most fun I had at a movie theater this year, probably.
I think that's fair.
It was just a ride. It's what you want when you see a movie like this: action, adventure, fun, compelling characters. Don't have to think too hard. Just come along for the ride. Some great
Charming
jokes,
actors.
great jokes, great writing,
Great, very funny.
very funny,
Way funnier than it had any right to be.
definitely. It did a really good job of knowing what it was there to do and not trying too hard to make it serious. Just come and enjoy yourself.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. Not too much context. They're not going to bore you with how the game works. Like,
No.
if you're a fan, it's there. You can see it. You can
Some
find
Easter
it.
eggs.
Right. You can
Yep.
pick that stuff out if you know and if you like it. I frankly kind of didn't. Flew right over my head, but I had a ball.
Yep.
You know, it's such a Chris Pine role too.
For sure.
It's
He carries the shit out of this movie, I
He
think.
does.
Yeah, he's
He
so
does.
charismatic, and I think it just puts him in a perfect place to succeed with that.
Yeah. He slays it for sure. But there's a lot to like, and fairly strong special effects. And decent story. At the end of the day, you got to come back to a solid story. There's actually a good story in there. It's fun. It's adventurous. The ending is very sweet
Yep.
and a little bit touching. It's not very emotional, but they do enough of that, and it's not just thrown in just to be there. They make it. They do enough work to get you there, and it's an ultimately very cute little story at the end, and yeah, it's great. It's great.
Had a
Cool
blast.
villains, good fun, charming villains. Hugh Grant.
Honestly, just talking about it right now makes me want to watch it again.
I've watched it a couple times this year.
Yeah.
Man. It's an easy one to just throw on.
Yeah.
Like, talk about rewatchable.
Yeah, this is a very rewatchable movie.
Oh, one of the most. Very much. Yeah. So,
Yeah, that's a quick one, but could
nothing else to say. It rocks. Talk to Me. More horror.
okay.
Where Evil Dead Rise satisfies and tickles the silly horror part of my existence, the part that likes The Pope's Exorcist, which we just had a conversation that everyone was shitting all over.
Yeah.
So that satisfies that little part of me. But Talk to Me was truly an excellent and very smartly made horror movie with commentary on phones and the way people kind of view the world through the phone, and being a teenager and the things you'll do for attention and fitting in. Really cool movie. Fascinating premise. There's this hand where when you touch it, you then have to say, like, I let you in, and you basically let these spirits into you. Or first you say, talk to me. Yeah, that's why the movie's called that. So there's this like embalmed hand, and I probably mentioned this on another podcast, but you shake the hand, and then you say, talk to me, and you see a ghost, and then you have to say, I let you in, and you actually let that ghost possess you for a short period of time. And this group of kids finds this out, and they basically view it as a fun party
Prank,
trick,
yeah.
party game. And again, they're all recording it on their phones. It's all about that. Who can get the craziest thing? It's like getting likes. There's so much commentary on that, and they go so far down the rabbit hole. And then like one of the younger siblings, like a young kid who should not be getting roped into stuff like this, gets roped in. It almost feels like a commentary on drug use too among kids like that. Like,
yeah.
They're like, oh, he shouldn't, but let him just do it a little bit.
Yeah.
That's how it starts. And it just it spins out of control. I don't want to give it away. The ending is complex. I think you could even debate what actually happens in the end. So it's kind of open into interpretation, but not so much so that it's like not definitive. I think you will walk away feeling like you know what happened. I think other people might interpret it differently from what I've understood, but I felt like I had a clear interpretation of the film. It wasn't muddled at all. But that, absolutely. I mean, as much as I love Evil Dead Rise, ultimately this is a stronger horror movie, and
Sure.
I think one of the best of the year easily. So
Well, so far you have made me interested enough to want to watch two of the recommendations, and that's one of them.
which two? The other one's Theater Camp
I mean, maybe
or Tyrone.
It's Who Cloned Tyrone is the other
Cloned
one that
Tyrone.
really sounds good.
It's very cool. You'll like it.
Yeah, but this one sounds great too. I would actually watch this.
I think you would like this too, actually. Yeah, it's not too scary. It's not Hereditary.
Sure. Well, I am going to throw in something else that you mentioned here, which is Russian Doll. You know, I'm a sucker for these types of concepts. This is just talk about a blast of an experience. I mean, you start off with Natasha Lyonne, who is, another very charismatic, personable lead, and it's her birthday party. She's a total mess. She's an alcoholic, and she is kind of at her own party, but she's barely there, really. She's kind of going through the motions, and every day, no matter what she does, she dies, and then comes back, snaps back to her party, and relives the same day over and over again.
Did you feel like you were in a time loop this year, Cameron?
Yeah, I'm starting to feel that way. The more I talk about this, yeah, it's definitely something that strikes me. I enjoy when somebody does something interesting with this concept, because it's retreaded ground for sure, but there's a lot of fertile ground to till, I think.
Okay.
There's a lot that you can do with it.
Well, if you could articulate, because we know how Palm Springs is unique, so without giving too much away, can you articulate how this makes that concept unique?
Yes, and it's around the title, which is Russian Doll.
Like a thing within a thing within a thing within a thing?
Yes. And you can't... I don't want to give too much away, because it isn't until the last couple of episodes that it all kind of falls together. But I will say that as the first season progresses, it slowly strips away the kind of non-essential parts of her day, and it gets more and more clear what is going on, because there's less noise going on.
Interesting.
And
Okay.
it's very, very well done, I think. I haven't watched the second season yet, but the first season, I think it could be a standalone. You wouldn't need to have a second season for it to be really, really fulfilling as a character arc.
Wow, cool. All
Yeah.
right.
Could not recommend it more. And I wasn't... I mean, everybody knows Natasha Lyonne to some degree,
I've
but
seen
I'd never
Poker
seen
Face.
her... I'd never seen anything that she'd been in before.
You haven't seen Poker Face still, which might also be on Netflix.
Yeah, I think so. But I haven't watched it yet.
Well, let's trade. You watch that one, I'll watch this one.
Sure. Let's do it.
Yeah. Have you ever seen Columbo? Are you really familiar at all?
I have watched quite a bit of Columbo.
Oh, then you'll dig it, man.
Yeah.
It's really good. It's the absolute sole heir to Columbo,
Sure.
easily.
Yeah,
I mean, the title card's even exactly the same.
yeah, my mom loves all those detective things.
Oh, has she
So I
seen it?
grew up with it.
She would love.
I don't know if she's seen Poker
She would
Face.
love Poker Face.
I'll ask her.
I guarantee. It's amazing. But I'll watch Russian Doll. It's a
Yeah,
great
you
recommendation.
should. All right, what do you got?
Next, I have my only show to make the list. Because you stole one of mine.
Yeah.
But Gen V. I've talked about it a bit. Gen V was solid. It was great.
Yeah.
It's
This
not,
is the spin-off of The Boys.
Yeah. Spin-off of The Boys about a university, Godolkin University, where all these young soups go. But it's, of course, got connections to Vought, the big evil organization, and these young people are essentially just kind of taken advantage of and made to compete with each other to be the best of the best so they can make it into the seven and just be these basically marketing tools that the superheroes are in the boys universe, even though they're like horrible people in reality. So it was a solid show. I found it's not as rooted in the comics, so they made up these characters for this show, but I found them really equally compelling, and I think Amazon is doing a great job of making it feel like it's in the boys universe. And they added in just enough stuff, other characters from the boys. You had some little cameos, some major ones, but just and like really a great balance, like not taking away from the story. It's not like you just watched the show for those cameos. They were pleasant surprises, but I was also compelled by the actual characters. In the boys, the Supes have a lot of flaws, and that's a huge part of it, is that they're like not what you would think. It's like they're not the superheroes you think of.
Right.
But this kind of takes things a step farther too, where they make their powers actually
a reflection of their character flaws.
Right. Or like pain that they have, or
Yeah.
trauma that they have of some sort. So there's like, one of the powers is rooted in bulimia. One is sort of a cutting thing. One is a transgender power. They can switch genders. So the show does a great job of just touching on a lot of things and making these characters really relatable, but also complicated and dealing with very teenage things, but not in an annoying way, like in a way that adults can observe and relate to, in an interesting way, not a like, oh, I'm a teen, feel my angst way. It was so really great show. If you like The Boys, you'll definitely like that. It's a really nice holdover until The Boys new season, and all the violence and crazy shit that you would expect. This guy with a tiny dick makes this girl who's bulimic, and when she's bulimic, she gets tiny. That's her power. So she's like kind of shrinks like Ant-Man, but she has to throw up to do it. And so this guy with a tiny dick asks this girl to get small so that she can make his dick look big. And, classic stuff from The Boys, like just silly, crazy shit like that.
Right.
It's a blast. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, another good rec. If we repurpose this episode into 2024, like pop culture, like resolutions or whatever, which is something that PCHH does, I would have to say I must catch up on The Boys in 2024.
I think you're going to dig it.
I know I will. I've watched the first episode and I loved it. To me, it seems like the spiritual successor to Watchmen, which I thought was really great. So definitely gonna make it. Gonna make it next year.
Well, if you watch that, I'll watch Station 11. How about that?
Okay, we're making a lot of pop culture commitments tonight.
True. They're all false. They're empty promises.
We'll have to
but that's
see
fine.
it this time next year if we lived up to it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, ask me in 12 months, and there won't even be a podcast.
Yeah, if we make it another 12 months, it's a miracle, guys. Like and subscribe. All right. Well, I will throw in for my final of our top 5, Across the Spider-Verse. Fairly new, probably the newest one on my list here. I thought it was better than the first one, Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, I would agree.
I thought that the first one, while great, was a little visually busy for me.
I knew you were going to say those words.
Yeah, I mean, we know each other pretty well. And it was. I thought it was great. It was a really great movie. You can point to the story and the character arc, the really, really relatable characters. Miles Morales is a great protagonist, I think, in general. But visually, it was just, particularly in the third act, when things get interesting, it just got to be too much for me. And with the animation style, which I thought was creative, it was that, but it was also just a little hard to track, and I didn't enjoy that. I thought the sequel did a much better job with that. I thought it was still really compelling.
And there was so much for the eye to still find.
Yes.
There was a busyness, but I know what you mean. They reined that in, or they refined it just a bit.
Yes. And I will say, I think they also improved on some of the storytelling aspects of it as well.
Did you like that it started with Gwen in that perspective?
Very much so. I
did
thought
too.
that the parents was a little bit more artfully done.
Yeah,
The
more
relationship
nuanced.
between him and his parents. I thought that was rushed in the first movie a little bit. The relationship between him and his dad in particular.
More compelling villain, ultimately.
Yes, although I'm still waiting to see, I guess, because it leaves you on quite a cliffhanger.
Sure.
But yeah, overall,
Strong
I thought it
villain.
was good. It was a good villain. Yeah, great movie overall. The soundtrack is fantastic.
Of course.
Yeah,
Those movies are amazing. I mean, they are among some of the best Spider-Man movies, without a doubt.
well, and not only that, but I think it's clear at this point that Spider-Man, and I know this is going to be these are fighting words. I'm in a room covered in Batman gear.
What?
But I do think that if you look at the full milieu or the full canon of any superhero, I think Spider-Man has the highest average by far.
Of what?
Of any superhero. Just like if you look at all of the
Of good
movies that have
movies
been
and shit?
made, yes, it is exceptional. There have been so many good Spider-Man movies made.
I think that's fair. I mean, I think Batman overall isn't too far behind. We just have
No.
one too many Batman and Robins.
There's a lot of bad Batman movies too, though.
Zack Snyder didn't help, maybe.
Sure. It's not just not just Zack Snyder. I don't want to lay that all at his feet.
No,
but
what I just said, Batman and Robin. I mean,
Yeah.
Schumacher.
Yeah.
I think you maybe want to revisit Batman Forever. You know, I don't want to get on this topic,
Sure.
but just that's not. but no, you're right. Spider-Man has a very good batting average.
Yeah.
Really, it's Spider-Man 3. It's like the worst Spider-Man
Yeah.
movie I can think of.
The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, that's true. It's not as bad as Spider-Man 3, but it's not great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
That's about
overall, very, very good.
Totally.
The Tom Holland ones are great.
Yep.
The Tobey Maguire ones are great.
Yep.
This new animated series is great.
Yeah.
And I mean, even Tom Holland appearing in the Avengers movies and
Yeah.
and the Civil War and all that.
I know.
Yeah.
It's great.
So that's it for my top 5. I do have one honorable mention for the end.
Okay. Or do you want to do that now?
I'll just throw it in right now. I will say that Loki 2, which we just
Loki
finished, the second season of Loki, absolutely amazing. What
Yeah, that's
a
what you stole from me. That's
culmination for that character. Couldn't have happened to a better guy. It's really fantastic. It does most of the things that we loved about the first season as well or better. There are a couple things I wish that we got more time with some of the side characters in the second season.
It's a little bit messier than the first season.
A little bit messier. I think the finale is fantastic. It
know.
cleans up
First one is too.
a lot of, yeah, I would say overall, like the season is salvaged, and we've talked about this before. The way that a movie or a TV show ends can so impact how you think of it retroactively. And man, this series, season 1 and 2, end with these incredible finales that just leave you thinking for days on end afterwards. And that does a lot for me. I can forgive some of the messiness of the middle of the season because it ends so well.
Absolutely. Yeah. No. Just pointing that out. But yeah. I mean, but interestingly, both seasons have really, really strong finales.
Definitely.
But this one is a bit more meaningful.
Yeah.
Like, in context of if you've watched all the Marvel shit and blah blah blah. And yeah, just for like in some ways even as an actor, for Tom Holland's contribution. You know, he
Tom
played
Hiddleston.
Oh God, thank you.
Yeah.
Slip of the old tongue.
Sure. Too
Tom
many
Hiddleston.
Toms.
Too many Toms. Yeah, Hiddleston's contribution, I mean, just to the MCU overall, being a villain so many times, even his kind of redemptive arcs in other movies, Ragnarok, like he adapts like a chameleon, but is always bringing that character. You know, he could be directed by Joss Whedon and be menacing. He could be Taika Waititi silly. He can be, you know, in this TVA role. I mean, there's just he has lent a ton of dimension to that character, and I think for what it's worth, in my view, as someone who's always loved villains, it is hands down one of the best overall villain arcs. I mean, redemptive villain arcs, I guess, which there are maybe fewer of, but it's just an incredible villain arc, and it's uniquely Marvel, uniquely MCU, because it could have only been done in the way that it was done, told over multiple stories over multiple years.
Multiple movies,
like this.
multiple TV shows. Yeah.
It was a tiny little Loki endgame. It was as satisfying as that was for the overall MCU, but for this character and his arc.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, very, very special. It was cool.
Really excellent.
Best villain in the MCU, in my opinion, now, hands down.
It'd be
At the
hard
end of the
for me
day.
to think of another one. I mean, the only thing I would maybe challenge is that he's not a villain anymore. I mean, he's 100% a hero.
Yeah. But I think he had the best arc. He's been the most
He sure did.
interesting,
Yeah.
quote unquote, villain, for sure. He's
Yeah.
also had more time, but
it was a beautiful story. I thought it was really it makes you feel for him and feel it's one thing to make a sacrifice, a choice. It's another thing to live like hundreds of years with that choice and that commitment. And I feel like this show in particular does a good job of making the weight of the years feel meaningful for that character.
right.
So
When you're dealing with that much time, it's hard.
yeah,
Yeah, to have it feel consequential or meaningful.
right. Yeah, and shout out to Marvel and to the people, the big wigs who are making all those decisions there. They've taken a lot of slings and arrows this year. I do just want to give them a shout out that it's hard to land the plane for a character like that who has been in 10 projects or whatever already and make something interesting and compelling for that character. And I think they nailed it with this one. They really did a good job.
100%, man.
Yeah.
Couldn't say any more myself.
How about you?
I think I'm all done. Yeah, except for my shout out, right?
Yeah, please take us home.
Well, since we took away some other things I was going to say, since I already shouted out my beautiful game that I'm playing, I realized that sitting not far from me is a movie poster for a film that came out in 2023 that I really did have a lot of fun with. And that movie is The Flash. And I also have Batman right here from The Flash.
Yes.
And my brother gave me for my birthday. That Batman do you see this Batman in the plane? That's new. Mm-hmm. You see that guy? Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's pretty cool. My brother gave me that. So, there's nothing else I can say about this movie. I've already said it. But it's a stupid movie. But I love Batman. And, yeah, that's that. That's my review. Silly movie. I love Batman.
Sure.
I love DC. It makes me feel like I'm in a comic book when I'm watching the movie. There's so many little comic characters running around, and he even calls Aquaman's dad, and it's so sprinkled in with all the little universe characters. So,
Well, in a year where you got married, where we went to San Diego and showered you with Batman themed gear of all kinds, you can't come out of this year and not give a shout out to The Flash.
we try. My
The
wife
Keaton
tried
Batman.
exactly. Michael Keaton Batman. My wife. Sorry to interrupt you. My wife tried to engrave My Dark Knight into my wedding ring. Speaking of my wedding, but that was copyrighted, so he couldn't do it.
Oh, even worse.
Ridiculous. But to your point, yes, I'm a sucker. That's my shout out. So
Fair enough.
that's all I got.
Well, to you and yours, folks, we'll try to get another episode before the end of the year, but if not, have a great holiday season. Be safe out there.
Absolutely. Happy holidays. Watch some Die Hard. I know I will.
Catch up on all of the media you missed this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I have a machine gun. Ho, ho, ho. Alan Rickman. Do your best Alan Rickman impression.
Rest in peace.
Oh, I know. He was the best.
He was.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Later.